You're listening to Plants and Politics with Gina Bonanno-Lemos. If you're ready to hear the truth about both sides of the aisle, what's really going on in America, and how big money interests prevent change to keep you sick, broke, and desperate, then play on. Welcome to Plants and Politics. This is Gina. So I have some pretty terrifying news for everybody. Apparently, Oregon Public Broadcasting just reported that since July 14th, peaceful protesters have been kidnapped off the streets by armed, masked federal agents in unmarked cars and vans. And this is at the direction of President Donald Trump. So these are officers from the U.S. Marshals Special Operations Group and Border Patrol Tactical Unit, for short, BORTAC, BORTAC. This apparently is the Border Patrol's equivalent of a SWAT team, is how they're described. So this is truly terrifying. There are protesters who were interviewed by Oregon Public Broadcasting, two of which named Connor O'Shea and Mark Pettibone. Connor O'Shea was actually able to catch some of this occurring live on video. He ran when these vans pulled up. So here's a quote from Connor O'Shea. He said, and apparently they had been at a protest. It was completely peaceful. He and his friend reported nothing unusual happening. They actually left. They were headed home for the night. I believe they said it was maybe about 2 a.m, if I recall correctly. So here's his quote. "I see guys in camo. 4 or 5 of them pop out, open the door, and it was just like, oh shit, I don't know who you are or what you want with us." His friend, Mark Pettibone, who actually was taken into custody, who didn't get away, also gave several quotes. So here's one of them. "I'm basically tossed into the van, and I had my beanie pulled over my face so I couldn't see, and they held my hands over my head." So he also went on to explain that he was basically thrown into this unmarked minivan full of armed men dressed in camouflage and body armor. They had not identified themselves. He was driven around downtown, and then he was taken to a building, and he was placed in a cell and read his Miranda rights without any explanation. So imagine how terrifying that is, right? You're just walking home. All of a sudden, multiple men in camouflage, no law enforcement badge. They don't identify themselves. They don't say anything to you. They just grab you, pull something over your face so you can't even see where you're going. And they're all armed, and they take you to a building. You have no idea where you are. They don't tell him why he's being detained. Apparently, he was released 90 minutes later. He received no paperwork, no documents citing the reason for this abduction and arrest. And he later found out that where they took him was the federal courthouse. So this is another quote from Mark Pettibone. He said, "It was basically a process of facing many walls and corners as they patted me down and took my picture and rummaged through my belongings. One of them said, 'This is a whole lot of nothing.'" Yeah, it is a whole lot of nothing. You're arresting peaceful protesters, and you're not even doing it in a legal manner. So Pettibone and O'Shea basically said that they think they were targeted because they were both wearing black, right? We all know that the right, especially faux news, quote unquote, news channel, loves to bloviate, go on and on about Antifa. Oh my gosh, Antifa. They're just everywhere. It's such BS, such complete, utter nonsense to try to turn the narrative against the protesters. So these were not the only accounts. There was a video apparently posted earlier this week that showed unidentified federal officers in camouflage on the street arresting a protester who had their hands up. So they weren't resisting. These federal police have charged at least 13 protesters with crimes, and they've arrested others but then released them. So there was a lawyer that they interviewed, Juan Chavez. He's the director of the Civil Rights Project at the Oregon Justice Resource Center in Portland. He said the Fed's actions amount to abduction and kidnapping. It was also reported that on July 11th, an unarmed protester who was just standing across the street and holding a speaker was shot by federal agents in the head. Now, he was luckily shot by a non-lethal weapon, but it still did leave him, as they reported, bloody and unconscious, and it resulted in facial and skull fractures. So they are literally shooting unarmed, peaceful protesters in the face. This is what's going on in America. This is what's going on in Portland, Oregon. So what do the leaders in Portland, Oregon have to say, or in Oregon in general? Rep. Earl Blumenauer, I think is how you say his name, Senator Jeff Merkley, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, and Oregon Governor Kate Brown have all spoken out about everything going on. And they've told the acting DHS chief, Chad Wolf, that he and his agents are not welcome. And they've said it in not so nice ways. I think they're being too kind, but they've all told them, we don't want you here. We don't need you here. We've got this. And that they're making things worse because, yeah, when you're going to start shooting peaceful protesters in the face, fracturing their skulls and arresting people, terrifying people with unmarked vans. I mean, this is clearly an attempt to intimidate protesters. This clearly has nothing to do with peaceful protests, with people who are literally out just exercising their First Amendment right to free speech. It's unbelievable. And if people on the right are cheering this on, if you're listening to this and you're on the right and you're saying, oh, yeah, good, they need to get these people off the streets, then you're full of shit with your whole, I'm a constitutionalist. I'm all for free speech. You know, all the people on the left are these snowflakes and they need a safe space. No, sounds like you need a safe space. Because if you can't even have people out with a sign that says Black Lives Matter without feeling triggered and without cheering on masked, armed men in camouflage, taking them down and taking them in and shooting them in the face, you sound like a freaking massive walking testicle. I mean, you barely need to be tapped and you go down for the count, apparently. So get over yourself, have some principles. Either you believe in free speech or you don't. I'm going to come down off my soapbox and finish this up. So Trump and DHS, here's what they claim. They claim that all of these agents are there to protect federal monuments. And the acting DHS chief, Chad Wolf, made the following statement. So these are quotes directly from him this past week. He said, Portland has been under siege for 47 straight days by a violent mob while local political leaders refuse to restore order to protect their city. A federal courthouse is a symbol of justice. To attack it is to attack America. So here's the problem with that. Oregon Public Broadcasting actually interviewed witnesses and protesters and found that these masked, armed federal agents are arresting people who aren't anywhere near federal monuments or federal property. Just as in the case of these two men who were interviewed, Connor O'Shea and Mark Pettibone. They were walking home. They weren't anywhere near a federal monument or a federal building when they were chased, in the case of one of them, and chased down also by a van. Like, not just chased on foot, they were chased by a vehicle. And then the other one was thrown into an unmarked vehicle by armed, masked men. So really, their excuse is complete nonsense. It's a complete fabrication. And this is all a political ploy. They also said that, it's not really even clear if many of these people being arrested have committed crimes, which is also the case in this Pettibone and O'Shea situation. They both said we hadn't done anything. I mean, clearly this Mark Pettibone didn't do anything wrong, wasn't carrying a weapon, didn't have any reason for him to be arrested. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just released him 90 minutes later without explanation. So this is absolutely insane. The fact that this is going on in the United States of America it's just, outrageous. It's completely outrageous. I was really hoping to not have to vote for either candidate in November, but it's becoming more and more clear to me that if Trump is allowed a second term where he doesn't have to worry about running again, he doesn't have to worry about re-election, he doesn't have to worry about going to prison for a lot of his crimes because the statute of limitation will have run out on a lot of them, he's going to get even worse. I mean, if you are the leader of America, you know that under the Constitution, people have the right to peacefully assemble, to protest, freedom of speech, and yet you are sending unmarked vehicles with men who have no markings on their uniforms. They're wearing camo, masks, they're armed, and they're just pulling up and grabbing peaceful protesters off the street. You are a dictator. You are an oligarch. You are everything that everybody has warned about Trump. So, yeah, he's forcing my hand. He's going to force me to vote for Biden in November. That's something I didn't want to do, but apparently that's the way it's got to be. Anyway, guys, please like, share, subscribe, share this everywhere because people need to know that this is going on. This is not getting mainstream press, and it needs to. It needs to be everywhere. All right. Thanks, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.